All right, so as this is my third year at Evil Corp, I am very aware of the lack of long term employment out there. I became aware of this within 1 week of starting at this company. The person who hired me, the senior manager, 4 generations ago, and I'm telling you guys this 4 generations ago, we've had a new manager every roughly less than every year since I've worked there. So I've gone through 4 of them. And the first guy that hired me was painfully aware of the turnover rates and the terminations and the people who just flat out left because there wasn't enough money to keep them locked into a job. But for the first, I'm going to say week and a half, he tried very hard to hide the fact from me. And this isn't something that I tried to hide from my Gen Z because he listens to my phone calls all day with my current senior manager, and he became aware of what was going on almost from day one. But let me just roll it back. It's, a few years ago, someone walks into my office, throws down their technology on the ground and gives us the middle finger. And the senior manager walks over to MS, who's visibly shaken, and says, I didn't want you to see that already. And I'm like, what do you mean? We kind of have a problem with turnover here. And I think it was just 15 days later where they had a massive layoff of employees. I don't know how many it was. I remember watching them walk through the middle of the building out to the parking lot one by one as they were being brought into HR, told that they were being laid off, and they all hit the parking lot. It was a thing to see. The very next day, the person that had told every one of those people that they didn't work here anymore was also put on the block. She herself had no idea what was about to happen. And this is how I knew, well, I knew way before that, the decline of long term employment is a thing in America. If you ever talk to an old person, talking to a boomer, they will tell you that the pension is what you live for. You're fresh out of college, you go to some unknown evil corp, put in your 20 years, you get regular promotions. You may not make it all the way to the top. You may not make it into the C suite. You may not become a VP, but let's say you're a mid level manager for 20 years. You come out, hopefully, you were making good money, so you put a lot of your money into retirement, your 401k, and you're ready to retire and you're 40 years old. I have currently met 40-year-old men. I work with 40-year-old men who still have to live at home because they've worked in jobs where there are no pensions. It's impossible to get to a pension. It used to be the most secure job that you could get in America was a tenured professor at a university. And even that has become more competitive as less and less people choose education as their career. Because I chose education, but education didn't choose me. And so here I am, out here, a middle aged man, not knowing what I'm going to do. There is no long term employment for me. There is no career path. There is no advancement. There are 30-cent raises for the people who stay, and for anyone who realizes that a 30-cent raise is not sufficient to sustain human life, they're going to leave. Either their work performance is going to decline because they're scraping by at the very bottom of society, or you're going to do something about it. I mean, hopefully not something crazy like come to work with your, I don't know, your shirt pulled over your head and act crazy. I mean, I don't know what I'm saying here. It's just that people don't know what to do. This whole society that's full of short-term, low-paying, hourly work that doesn't lead anywhere is making society as a whole very nervous. I get nervous. Every morning when I come to work, I look at my screen at work and I think to myself, is this it? And at the end of the day, I ask myself the same question. Is this it? Is this mindless, repetitive, nowhere going job? Is it worth it? And then you just look across the street at the Taco Bell, you look at the gas station, then you look at the subway, and it's like those places now only have one person working in them. A subway used to be a store where you had 3 to 4 workers working in it. Now you can walk into any given subway within walking distance of my house. Not that there are a lot of them anymore, because Subway has been on the decline for years. There used to be so many subways everywhere. Now you actually have to go looking for one. The Arizona Mills Mall is probably the only mall in America that's still around that doesn't have a Starbucks. A Starbucks inside of a grocery store inside of a Kroger's is going to have one worker. What this means is that they know one worker is only going to stay there for a certain amount of time. So the increase in low term employment has been growing in this country for a decade. No one stops to consider that if you're looking for a job right now, and a lot of these places, these low end retail places, are hiring as few people as humanly possible, that even getting a minimum wage job can often be brutal. Not just hard to get, but putting in 200 applications in 1 week may lead to no callbacks, no return emails, and you ask yourself why. If you've ever filled out an application for a Walmart online, you will realize that they're not looking for the best workers. They know their workers are short term. Amazon warehouse, short term job. Amazon driver, going door to door, short term jobs. Even at my current job, I lose my Gen Z every 3 to 6 months. Why? It's a short term job with no career path of any kind, intentionally designed to keep a person who's not interested. Let me rephrase that, who doesn't qualify for health benefits, who doesn't qualify for vacation, who doesn't qualify for a flexible schedule. All the things that we need as human beings, we don't qualify for in low retention jobs. If you go work for an agency, for a temp agency, I hear that's the worst thing you can do to yourself. There's no sick time, there's no holidays, there's no job security of any kind. You could come back the next day and they'll tell you, you know what, it didn't work out. They don't want you back. I've had that happen to me where the temp agency hires you and they send you out to a job for a few days and then they come back and they say, please don't send that person back. We'd like to have someone else. The temp agency realizes that you're not a good worker, so they stop calling you and now you got to go somewhere else and look for a job. It's a quite common thing to happen. Again, no investment on the part of anyone, especially right now with Gen Z. They don't want to train Gen Z. They don't want Gen Z, and they are doing everything they can to try to find other workers besides Gen Z. Because Gen Z has one thing that it has going for it. Their parents are sympathetic to their situation, the housing market, the low end jobs, and the fact that education hasn't led anywhere for them. You may come out with your 4 year shiny degree and let's say computer science, entry level job, entry level programming job. And let's say you don't even get there. Let's say you have a STEM degree and you have to work at a help desk. Help desk jobs don't lead anywhere. They're no career path, dead end jobs. I worked at Insight and I can assure you, when you work in a large call center, the only people that stay there are the losers. And that's what America's most interested in. We may hate losers for being losers, but most of us are losers with low retention employment all over a resume. I've seen some of these Gen Z resumes. I mean, they're working at Pizza Hut, they're working at Taco Bell, they're working on a laundromat, they're working at a Chinese food restaurant, they're working at the mall, they're working at a car wash. I mean, one of the girls that I met at the car wash, since I go so frequently. Her name was Cammy, and I saw her I would say almost every day for 6 months. And then one day she told me to roll down my window, and she's like, "I'm gonna go work security at the Tempe Marketplace." Then a year later, almost exactly a year later, her boss, the really sweet blonde girl that used to be the manager of the place, she abruptly disappeared. But right before she disappeared, she told me that Cammy was coming back from working mall security back to the car wash, but she was only at the car wash for about, I'm going to say, 2 months tops, and then she vanished again. She didn't tell me this time. I think she probably got fired. And that's the great thing about these low entry level jobs. They often have a system of points. This is actually what happened to the person that got fired on Tuesdays, that they have these dashboards, right? And on the dashboard, it tells you how your work performance is doing, how many days you have off, and how many points you have against you. Once you reach the point system, the end of the point system, the system automatically filters you out. The bottom 10% at any corporation is automatically going to get filtered out, and they're going to bring in new people to work these short term jobs. At least in my experience, this is the way that it's been, but your experiences might be different. So, with that said, I think I've spent over 10 minutes on the monologue. Let's get into our talking points before we run out of time yet again. This is me. I think I've been talking into the mic now for over 100 minutes today. An hour and a half of talking today. All right, so these are going to be our talking points. The decline of long term employment. Companies have stopped investing in employee training, fear as a management tool, and the productivity paradox. Oh my gosh, my mouth is so dry. So here we go. The shift from full time, stable jobs to part time gig and casual work has fundamentally changed the concept of a long term career. Let's face it, people. You're not going to find a job with a long term career unless you are a very specialized or highly educated person that's doing something so good that they need to keep you. Our financial expert at my work is one of those people. When they have to rehire you back for a fifth time, it means that you are a person that is a very, very good person and they want you to stay. Unfortunately, at her age and her health conditions, and the fact that she suffers from, I would say, clinical depression because she's a married woman who was recently divorced, moved back in with her brother, and her brother has like five five plus kids from what I could tell listening in the background the last time I had to call her at home to help her with a technology related problem that involved a screwdriver, a lot of screaming, and help me. Yeah, that happened. Anyhow, this shift from full time work is something that was intentional because corporations realized that workers who are going to stay in a position long term are going to want more perks in the workplace, including greater benefits, higher salaries, and more flexible time to spend with their families. All the things that Evil Corp doesn't want to spend money on or time on for employees that it sees that are easily replaceable. But the higher you go up and the closer you get to becoming an executive, the more flexibility there is up there, especially when it comes down to pay and time off. But if you're a fry cook at McDonald's and you even look at your manager the wrong way and he's in a bad mood, guess what? You just lost your short term job. And now you're on Indeed looking at all the jobs that are open that were there yesterday and the day before, and that will be there again in the future because remember, in the future, all restaurants are Taco Bell. That's how jobs are. In the future, thanks Demolition Man, we realize that all jobs in the future are Taco Bell. And therefore, it means that you're not going to be there long. It's going to be harder to get into a job that doesn't want long term employees. And if you show a hint of having a backbone in the workplace, like let's say you're like me, you don't like working a minimum wage job, and they get a whiff that you think you're better than the job, you better start looking for another job. And even if you start looking for another job, chances are you may not get it before the X falls. That's what happened to this person who got fired on Tuesday. She had been interviewing at her previous job and applying for other places for the last 6 months. Because as I told her, sales jobs aren't permanent jobs. Sales jobs are always temporary because you can't predict what's going to happen in a sales job. You may have a great month, you may have a bad month, but you have enough bad months, you're not going to be there very much longer, and it's not your fault. In fact, I was having this discussion with Gen Zero a few weeks ago because he used to work at a place like that where they told him that he needed to increase his sales. And unfortunately, you can't increase your sales if people aren't buying. Same thing with my receptionist at work. She used to work in a sales oriented job at a place where she needed to sell memberships at the end of every visit. But because people weren't buying the memberships, they needed to find someone who would do sales way more aggressively. I don't know how many sales girls they've gone through in the salon that I go to every few months because they constantly tell them you have to push product, you have to push product, you have to push services, you have to push memberships. And some customers react very badly to being poked and prodded repeatedly to buy something that they don't want. That's why we all end up with all these weird memberships that we don't know why we have. I mean, I must have, half a dozen memberships that I go to on a regular basis, but I go to them because I paid for them because I don't know where sales jobs are. I've never worked in sales. I know I wouldn't be good at sales. I know that if you're doing in person sales, it's a lot easier of a job to do when you're an attractive person. Me, as a gargoyle, you would never buy anything from me. You just look at me like, look how sour that guy looks. He doesn't even smile. His face is constantly a straight line. And he wants me to buy a timeshare? Yeah, not going to happen. Anyhow, moving on to our second talking point. Employers no longer invest in training staff. This has been the problem with every single senior manager that I've had over the past 4 years. There's no training. If you have a question and you can't find it in the employee handbook, then you are up a creek. And this is what's happened to many of them. They don't know what to do. In fact, I was working with Gen Zero the other day last week, and he said, well, why don't you ask the senior supervisor for assistance on what we should do here? I'm like, his position is decorative. He has no say in what we do day to day. And then he's like, well, why don't you ask the president of this department? I'm like, that guy would be completely clueless. He's the guy that told us to do this job and then acted surprised on the phone when I called him to tell him, hey, we're doing that Italian job you asked us about. And he's like, oh my God, you're taking initiative. He actually said that on the phone after asking me to do the job and then saying, oh, you took the initiative to do your job. I was like, oh my God, you can't win with some of this management. But again, training your staff. Like I didn't train my Gen Z. I let one of my coworkers train him in a different style. Because if I train him my style, he's going to get an administrative training. And that's not the kind of training I wanted him to have. I wanted him to have a more technology, more support related role because I wanted him to be able to do more of the technology aspect. But of course, he never does what I tell him. In fact, I was in a meeting on Friday and I had to tell the group that Gen Z needs more training. It's like, what are you supposed to do with Gen Z? You can open up the can of dog food. You can put it down on the floor with their little tray that says Gen Z on the side of it, and you put the dog food in there, and you tell them, you flip your hands and you say it's time to eat, Gen Z. They'll come over and look at it and be like, you know what? I'm not interested in that. I want benefits. I want a higher salary. And for lunch, I at least get Taco Bell. Your can of dog food with a picture of Gen Z on the outside. It's not going to do it. I'm sorry, guys. I couldn't help it. I was trying to stay in character until I saw the picture. of my actual Gen Z on the outside of the can, and then at the can making that slushing noise like when you empty out SpaghettiOs, but even lower quality. You're talking about a can of dog food that's made out of literal used used toilet paper, used newspaper, and gym mats, and a little food coloring and texture with like grass and dirt. That's what you empty out into their container, and it's like, and you get them. And it's like you get them excited about it. All right, it's time for the corporate lunchtime, where lunch is provided to you, so you don't have to leave the job and go somewhere else to eat. We'll provide you Gen Z food for the growing population of people who are broke anyway. You know, Gen Z's obviously going to be happy to get free Gen Z canned food. But knowing Gen Z, they're just going to take one look at you, tell you that they know what's up, and that doesn't pass for a real can of Gen Z food. Just like this job. They're going to tell you the same thing. They're going to go to job fairs, they're going to go to career services, and they're going to look at the jobs that they qualify for, and they're going to smell it. Same way you smell a pair of socks. Gen Z's going to smell it. Uh oh, this job smells like a bad job. The same way that my food tray with that can of dog food with my picture on it doesn't pass the test either. And this is what corporate America is asking them to do. They know what they're being offered isn't what they want, but unfortunately, there are no different flavors of Gen Z dog food. There's just one. That's it. It tastes like all of your nightmares mixed in with a little, I don't know, something that was left behind by a person of the street. And it just doesn't pass the sniff test, doesn't pass the taste test, doesn't even, come close to being something that I would put in my pie hole. But we're asking them to do it. And when they won't do it, they're being fired. Fired at the highest rate of any other group because you got to eat it. It's not about liking it. It's not about enjoying it. It's about holding your nose and putting it into your hole and, you know, don't taste it. Just swallow it. That's what the modern short term job is right now. Don't smell it. Don't taste it. Just put it in there, swallow it, and accept this is it. This is as good as it gets, Gen Z. And unfortunately, because of who you are and your generation, this is what you're going to be expected to do. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, I don't really script the parts of the video other than the talking cues, so I had no idea where I was going to go with this particular video. The dog food bit was a little dark, people. Even I have to say that I was there's a little throwing up in my own mouth with that dog food bit. But hey, you guys keep coming back. You know what's up. You know what's here. If you wanted to watch something good, you'd be on a different YouTube channel. Anyhow, remember, please leave a like on these videos. I'm getting thousands of views a day, and I get about 100 likes a day, which I don't understand. I got 15,000 views the other day and 100 likes. So, do you guys like the videos or do you not like the videos? Tell me down in the comment section because I don't understand why you guys aren't liking the videos more. Liking the video is free and it's good for your karma. Now, remember, don't touch the can of Gen Z food.